1950 was the opening race of the Carrera Panamericana, or the Mexican road races as they were known here. A segment of highway that stretched from the border of Texas all the way down to the Guatemalan border at Central America. It took the Mexican government 25 years to complete this stretch of road, and they were extremely proud of it, and they wanted to put a race on it to show the world they were ready. It was an open race. It was worldwide enrollment, and a lot of racers, 58 in total number, came from the United States. Probably 6 people who should have never been there at all, who were really tourists. And a rest of racers had very little experience in this type of a road race at all. Most of them were our typical American midget racers, sprint racers, and so forth. Very typical were Jack McAfee and Ford Robinson. They were unknown to Mexico. They'd never been there before. They just knew that it was a race coming up, and they did the best preparation they could, and away they went. What we're about to see is a documentary of that as seen through Ford Robinson's camera, and with clips in from other types of newsreels and other sorts of media for the time.
This is a great adventure, 50 years ago. How'd I ever get involved in this thing? It was all due to a gentleman by the name of Tony Paravano. He came in one day in the shop and said, McPhee, look, they're going to have an international race in Mexico to inaugurate their new highway. Let's go down and race. I tried to get out of it, but I couldn't. It was just a mixture of people, most of them not really hardcore racing people. There was Herschel McGriff. He ended up winning the race. These are various entries. There were a few foreign car entries that were entered. This is a Talbot. This is Jay Chamberlain, who entered a Jaguar. This is a very prominent car that was entered by the Presidente. Ralph Kramer standing by our Cadillac. This is the Pemex fuel that was supplied by the government, and we all had to use it. It smelled like hell, and I doubt if the octane rating was very high. This is the actress Jacqueline Evans. This is Manukau, the national hero. This is Johnny Mance in the Lincoln. This was the American lady selling maiden form bras. This is a very prominent car in this race that was entered by the Presidente and was driven by an Army lieutenant. Everybody leaves in minute intervals. At one of the only dangerous curves, the Presidente's car did an El Rolo. I thought they were probably out of the race, but as you'll see as the race goes on, they roll the car over and he continues. And I thought after he rolled the car, probably they would shoot him at dawn.
Estoy aquí, mañana me voy, pasado mañana, ¿dónde me encontraré? Hoy estoy aquí, mañana me voy.
Our first stop was at Chihuahua.
¿Dónde me encontraré?
This is the president's driver again. He ends up rolling the car a second time. He turns out to be the national hero. We run from Chihuahua to Leon, which is a noonday stop, and then on to Durango. This is the lineup the morning after we have spent overnight at Chihuahua. There's a famous man, Virgil Parch, the cartoonist. You'll notice on some of the curves, The dangerous ones, the people are all gathered for whatever reason on the outside of the corner. And of course that's the worst place to be, and if somebody loses it. This 42 is a Lincoln driven by Gonzalez. We became bosom buddies, as it were. Not really racing each other, but in certain sections of the race, he had set his speed at a certain pace, and I had done the same thing, and we just switched places constantly, but we really weren't racing each other. We had problems with our chase vehicle, which had our spare parts and tires, and we drove very conservatively for the first 3 days, not knowing what we're getting into. I'd never been over the course. I didn't know what condition it was in. Basically, I was surprised that for the most part, the road conditions were excellent. The one thing that did worry me, of course, is if we needed something, I was out of luck. So this was our transportation, both down there and back. Here's your national hero again. This gives you an example of what this thing looked like after he did 2 El Rolos with it. And he's congratulated by people as he gets in and out of these cities. When we get to Lyon finally, and I tell Ford, I say, well, let's try and see if we can really run with these guys. So from Lyon into Mexico City, we opened it up and came in third. The only 2 cars that beat us were Tommy Deal and Johnny Mance. So I knew that we were competitive then, and we had a chance to do something. The only problem again is I didn't know what was going to come later. Here you see we're checking the speedometer, and the needle is pegged over at 120 miles an hour. There's a bridge that's a narrow bridge that you can only get 1 car in. 2 cars arrived there at the same time, and one is hanging over the bridge on one side and the other car is hanging on the other side there. Going through these villages, this is about what you see on and off running through small villages. And occasionally there's larger cities such as Zacatecas that has that old kind of a Roman aqueduct, water aqueduct that they've left in place, and you have to be very careful to get through there and get through the city. Again, there's numerous cars that have problems that aren't prepared. The main contingency from Mexico is supplied by one of their big car dealers, Packard car dealers, and you'll see these Packards with Uno Dos Tres on them on the sides, but they didn't stand up.
Que Dios nos dé mucha vida, nena, y mucha felicidad. Que Dios nos dé.
This is Felice Bonetto in the Alpha. He didn't realize that we were trying to pass him. I gently bumped him, and he moved over and I went by. Later on, he came to me and said, "Ah, the boompa." This is Mexico City on Sunday. You can imagine how many people were there. Everybody was not working, of course. It was a real national holiday. Another thing about these overnight stops, Ford, Robinson, and I decided, well, we're going to go to bed early and we'd be ready to race. But we found out, of course, they had a banquet and party every night, and we happened to be staying in the hotel where they had this banquet and party. So we heard this Mexican music with the trumpets and all night, so we might as well have gone to the party.
El ciudadano gobernador de Durango hace entrega de un trofeo especial a Rodolfo Castañeda, el bravo piloto del Cadillac número 9 que se ha convertido en el punto de mayor pasión en la carrera.
You will see when we start the next morning, I'm in third spot, Tommy Deal, Johnny Mance, and then myself. This is where I lost the race. We go from 7,000 to 10,000 feet to Oaxaca, and this highway is paved with volcanic ash because there's so much rain. This is Maciel, one of the great Mexican drivers passing us. We just went through a set of tires, and I didn't realize it until after we left here. Down the road about 20 miles, I popped one, and we just about went on our head. Another 20 miles, the other one popped. There was no problem with that. But we had no tires. My pickup truck with the tires was back in Mexico City. This is the next morning. We're going to Tuxtla Terrace. There's a 7-mile straight stretch that runs at dead sea level, and then you're back in the mountains. We bought the Goodyear Euskadi tires, put them on the front, and the Firestones on the back. But again, with the Mexican tires that we had to buy, the tread was so heavy. So we had a tread split on that, and we had to stop and change that. As you can see, looking down into the valley, a very treacherous part of the road, nothing but decomposed granite. This part of the race over this rough road should have never been, and of course the next year when they ran it, they did shut it off, and we started at Tuxtla Terrace. And the overall winner, Herschel McGriff. This is Johnny Mance coming in on the rim. He'd ran all through tires on this rough road and came in on the rim just to finish the race. That's myself and Johnny, and here's Tommy Deal, the fellow from El Paso. And actually, he was the only individual, really, that I thought knew the whole race and should have won it. This is Jesus Gonzalez, driver of Car 42, and Ford Robinson, who drove with me and took most of the pictures. After the race, we stayed in that jungle area until all the cars finished. Then I started back immediately. This is the Mexican president's driver getting his final trophy. And the overall winner, Herschel McGriff. We drove all night right on through back to Mexico City, and finally got together with our chase truck, which we hadn't seen in days. As far as they could get was Mexico City because of all the traffic problems and the people shutting down the highway till after they could clear these wrecks out and all. So this was the big adventure. I guess it will go down in history as one of a kind.
Han nacido en mi rancho dos arbolitos que parecen gemelos, y desde mi casita los veo solitos, bajo el amparo santo y la luz del cielo. Nunca están separados